The entire topic surrounding Binance, along with the recent spot listing of Casper, prompted Jonathan Sambulinski to make a particularly bold post. This development has led several other exchanges to reach out, and now it is also publicly known what Jonathan Sambulinski is currently working on, what the future of Casper is expected to look like, and why many different projects will soon face some very tough times ahead. All that and much more here in this video. Hey, and welcome to Crypto Yule. Guys, it's honestly pretty crazy what's happened here. In the last video, I talked about just how much a Binance listing, specifically a spot listing for Casper, would actually cost. Specifically, it would require 3% of the entire Casper supply, which at the time when the news first broke, was equivalent to a staggering $42 million. Insane. If you haven't seen it yet, check it out up here. It's a video. It even went a bit viral, which makes me really happy because the topic of Casper and Binance really deserves much more attention. And we've seen that this post by Jonathan Sambulinski has generated massive attention. In the first 24 hours, this post received 1.3 million views, and by now it's already at 2.1 million. There really should be a lot more likes and a lot more people commenting on it. So I'm a bit disappointed about the likes, but otherwise the reactions are definitely there. But a lot of people just shared it really quickly and didn't even hit the like button. So here, if you haven't done that yet, it really helps support this post a lot. He has this visionary blockchain futures top 100 where the community could vote. Jonathan Sambulinski was then chosen and there was a vote, or rather the community was allowed to vote. These are such weird things. Yeah, the community votes, that's all fine. But I said in the last video, why are people even voting there? It's actually pointless. In fact, as you may recall in the previous video, I even had trouble voting, just as you saw, and then people said, yeah, you have to do a new KYC first. And I replied, no, I'm out. I don't even use Binance. I've never actually used Binance. For me, it was always important to spot crypto projects early, to see them early, and to be able to buy them early. And that was never really the case with Binance, except if it's on the BNB chain. So their own tokens, where they're probably also involved themselves, or developed by the Binance team where they themselves make some money as well. They list those quickly, but not other projects. And so there were always a lot of smaller exchanges, or exchanges that list cryptocurrencies quickly that were much more interesting to me. That's why I've never been not and will not be a Binance user. And that's why I couldn't vote. And at first I said, well, it doesn't really matter, who cares? But in the end, it's actually very good that he won, because as a result, he received an invitation from Binance, and he also acted that he said, I will not go to, I think it was Dubai where he was supposed to go exactly. I have to unfortunately decline the invitation from Dubai. I don't want to offend anyone, but many of the jurors are enthusiastic Casper supporters for whom my Casper status was at least as important as my research. Let them win or I'm out. In the end, this let them win or I'm out basically means if you're already holding such a dramatic vote and I, as the Casper protocol writer, win, then maybe you should also accommodate the Casper project a bit, for example with a spot listing, which they still haven't done so far. Yes, and this post attracted a lot of attention and of course also brought attention to Casper. We can also see that in the chart, and if we look here, we can see it specifically on the 6th of November, when it all started with this post. The Casper price briefly, and as I mentioned in the previous video, if it rises above 5 cents, a lot of short positions get liquidated. And that's exactly what happened. And then it was even able to climb up to 5.48 cents, which was of course very positive. Yes, and now it's just hovering up there. It could be forming a kind of flag pattern here. But the chart is already starting to converge again. It could be forming another triangle pattern. I'm really curious to see what will happen in the next few days. And of course, as I've already said, it would be amazing if another exchange came along now and said, look, we're going to list Casper. So the attention currently focused on Casper because of this post, because of this Binance vote, could of course be used by any exchange to say, I'm listing Casper now. If you want to buy Casper, then check out the major exchange Bybit.eu. Very important, Bybit.eu. If you haven't registered yet, you can easily do so and secure a bonus of 20 USDC by simply registering here, completing the task, and depositing at least $100 within 14 days. This can also be 100 USDC, and then you'll receive the 20 USDC credited to your account. You'll find everything you need in the description right here in this link. This offer is by invitation only, which means you can only access it through the link in the video description, and you can easily buy KAS with USDC via spot trading here. So with the 20 USDC you receive here, you can easily buy KAS. So signing up here is definitely worth it. For example, Dr. Martin Hisberg. You've already heard a lot about him, and we've often talked about him here on the channel. He's with Uphold Inc. Uphold Inc. might not be that well known in Germany and Europe, but in America it's a relatively large and well-known exchange. Kaspa has been available there for a very, very long time, and he also says quite clearly that this text moved him so much that he called out to his screen when he read it. Yes, exactly. He said he would handwrite the whole thing and hang it in his office. Yes, and then he wrote again for the younger generation, explaining what handwritten actually means. As someone from the older generation, he naturally likes to make such allusions. In any case, it's very interesting what kind of excitement this has caused. And this post has also received almost 50,000 views. So you can see the whole thing is making waves and many people are speaking up about this topic. And of course, that's very, very exciting. Even a Bitcoin site has reported on it, namely because Bitcoin.com. They briefly summarized again that he strongly criticized the fact that the promotion of casino tokens on Binance is very, very high, while the promotion of fairly launched cyberpunk projects on Binance hardly happens at all, and if it does, then only with expensive listing fees, as we are seeing now. So here again is a short, concise text on this whole topic, which is perfectly fine, and in fact, a Bitcoin site with 35,000 followers is reporting on it. It's quite interesting to see, and it has almost 100,000 views. This even resulted in a 3-minute video about why Bitcoiners should take a look at Casper. I even shared this video on X, so if you want to watch it, you don't necessarily have to use the link here. You can find it on my X page in this case. Yes, and that's what's special about it. You just have to be honest. Bitcoin and Casper actually have a lot in common, except that the Bitcoin network is simply much bigger than the Casper network. You have to be honest about that, and that's why many Bitcoiners are so, unfortunately, a bit closed-minded, that they simply won't even look at another project, even though many people point out that as a Bitcoiner, you should take a look at Casper. Yes, and the whole thing is of course extremely interesting because you also have to consider what other exchanges have done. Other exchanges like Kraken, for example, listed Casper for free, and that was definitely something special. Specifically, Kraken listed Casper with absolutely no listing fees at all. They simply listed it, got help from the Casper development team to set everything up or integrate it, and then everything was perfectly fine, just as expected. There's a very good reason why it's emphasized once again that Kraken charged 0 fees. That's because Binance, of course, is demanding $42 million in KAS tokens or in KAS coins here. But something else happened as well, namely MEXC. MEXC, whom we all know, MEXC said that they've been supporting Casper for a long time, that they have close contact with the Casper community, that they have great respect for Jonathan Sambolinski and the team, and that they will continue to support Casper. And as you know yourselves, with what's been happening with the KAS price at MEXC lately, that post got about 108,000 views, and right underneath it, things started to kick off. I really have to restrain myself a bit with what I read out here, but I'll just show you this picture. And yes, of course, it's AI generated, we can see that, but it's definitely a big topic. Back then, MEXC was actually one of the first exchanges to go ahead and list Casper, but only with the 25,000, I think, was it 25,000 or was it already 50,000? So the listing fees have changed a bit over time. Currently, it's 60,000 that you have to pay for a MEXC listing. And the thing is, the community said, guys, you're presenting yourselves as the big Casper supporters now, but for a long time, at least on the MEXC exchange. And of course, it's always hard to figure out what MEXC itself is doing after the fact, but you just have to be honest, most of the biggest and worst Casper dumps happened on MEXC. You just have to be honest about that. Of course, they're also one of the oldest exchanges, at least one of the oldest major exchanges, that listed Casper. So that means a lot of people can simply still have a lot of Casper there, or they use it because they say, that's an old exchange where I bought Casper pretty early, and so they also sell their Casper there again. That's why it's always difficult to blame the exchange for it, but it's just strange that these massive dumps have repeatedly happened on MEXC, and that withdrawals were stopped relatively quickly. And with their, I think it's 1,000 block confirmations or even 10,000 block confirmations, of course, deposits take an extremely long time, and so do withdrawals. That's what many people have criticized. And now, MEXC's side, from the CSO, they're presenting themselves and saying, yeah, we listed Casper early, and we've been supporting it for a long time. Yes, and the community is saying very clearly, if you're now presenting yourselves as big Casper supporters, then send Jonathan Sampolinski's team the 25,000 or 50,000. Like I said, I can't remember exactly what it was. You can write it in the comments if you know what it was. I think it was 50,000, those $50,000. Or at least the amount that was paid back then as listing fees, just send that back to Jonathan Sampolinski now so he can continue his research with it. That would be a really bold move from MEXC right now. The community wrote it in the comments. I'm really curious to see what happens, but I don't believe it will happen. Do you think MEXC will pay it back? Write it in the comments. I would be really surprised personally. But a really bold move would also be if one of those other three big ones did it now. Let's leave Binance out of it for now. But I don't think it's out of the question that Binance will now make a concession to Casper and maybe demand less, or maybe now because of this bold move, or rather this bold post and the win in this top 100 ranking by Jonathan Sampolinski. And I think there was even another poll where Michael Sutton, who is also a big Casper supporter, actually moved up to second place. So that means we can see here that a lot of the Casper community voted. But then we have three other exchanges here. OKX, which I already mentioned in the last video, so the people I know from OKX tell me they don't know why Casper still isn't listed there. Coinbase, Brian Armstrong, hello? Crypto.com. Honestly, I always thought they would list Casper pretty quickly, so I was really surprised, but there were also some screenshots showing that it was already in the works. So I'm really curious to see who will join in here. If you want to make a guess and say OKX, Crypto.com or Coinbase, or if you want to share your opinion on the topic, go ahead. Binance Casper, on the other hand. Write it in the comments. I'd be interested to hear what you think about it. One major Casper supporter from the very beginning, who has really worked closely with Casper, built impressive production lines for logos and also for support, including the KLC20 token, is Tangem. And Tangem still has their limited edition, the green Casper card, and you can still buy it using the code CryptoYule to save 10%, or you can use the link in the video description or in the pinned comment. At the same time, there are still the 50% promotions, which means you buy one of the standard versions, Stealth or Classic, and then you can get one of the others as well. Now Casper is available again. It wasn't available in the last video. 50% free for the second wallet, and for the first wallet, you also get 10% off with the code CryptoYule. At the same time, there's a 25% discount on the ring, and for both of these packages, shipping is free. Tangem, the simple hardware wallet for you in your pocket. And simple for everyone. At the same time, Casper is also working on something really big, namely the vRocks. I don't want to go too deep into this topic in this video because the whole subject is just now coming up and is currently being explained. Basically, the whole situation involving Binance has actually made it much more clear and well known what Casper is actually currently doing, or rather, what Casper intends to do in the future. We knew that these 10 blocks per second were successfully implemented. Since then, the Casper blockchain has been running even better. The real-time TPS keeps increasing thanks to community initiatives where people say, today we're going to do a lot of transactions to show other blockchain projects what Casper can do. And now they're working on vProgs. And these vProgs are supposed to or could potentially make Binance irrelevant, in theory. And the whole thing is extremely exciting. To put it briefly, currently it's like this. A firm has a lot of projects built on their layer 1. To summarize quickly and roughly. This has led to layer 1 becoming noticeably slow, both due to the increasing number of transactions and more broadly in general. Transaction fees have also increased, and to process everything faster, you always had the option to pay a significant amount of transaction fees to move ahead more quickly. And the whole issue was ultimately solved by creating many small individual blockchains, in this case second layers of Ethereum. And these second layers have their own transaction fees. That means they started with only Ethereum and eventually their own were introduced. For example, Polygon, which at some point switched to POS, meaning the cryptocurrency POS, or Arbitrum with ARP, and many others. And Casper wants to carefully design the whole thing so that you have a layer 1, and on this layer 1, or ultimately not just on this layer 1, but really anyone can build on Casper, and each project then builds its own small independent network, which is directly connected to the Casper blockchain. This means that every project building on the Casper blockchain within its own network that is automatically and seamlessly connected to Casper only needs Casper as the transaction fee. In other words, all projects benefit from this unified fee system, making it simpler and more efficient for everyone involved. That means, regardless of which specific application or use case is built around the Casper blockchain, KAS must always be paid as the transaction fee. So, you get all the benefits of the blockchain. Fast and inexpensive transactions, and the network keeps growing. This means the network is becoming more and more decentralized, and these are the major advantages that Casper already has. And on this topic, like Prox, which was just briefly and roughly summarized, the Casper Eco Foundation, or KEF, actually has its own space for this, which is even running right now. There really aren't that many people in this space at the moment. You have to be honest about that. That's really very, very technical. They do try to explain it simply, and with the current solutions, they're just trying to highlight the advantages. As I said, that was really just a very rough summary from me. I can absolutely totally understand everyone who says, yeah, I really don't get any of this. It's very, very technical, but it's going to bring about a massive revolution. And that will ultimately lead to the Casper ship continuing to sail, or rather, to rise forward unstoppably. Whether the cryptocurrency KS will benefit so extremely from this is of course hard to predict. But what's important to say here is that it will ultimately mean that all projects, for example, those transferring over from Firm to Kaspa, if people actually choose to do that, they'll only need to make minimal protocol changes and they'll all have to use KAS as their transaction fees. So for example, if Uniswap integrates KS, or rather integrates the Kaspa blockchain, then KS will also have to be paid as a transaction fee there. Well, of course that makes sense. It's no different for companies and others. But it could get very interesting here because if major players like Uniswap connect to the Kaspa blockchain, it will naturally make it even easier for other projects from Firm or other blockchains to switch over. All projects that use the Firm virtual machines as a basis only need to make very minimal protocol changes in order to seamlessly transfer to the Kaspa blockchain or to build their project there. The whole thing is extremely exciting. It's currently in development. It's not here yet. It'll take a little while, but it's in the works and it's all very, very exciting. Casper will achieve great relevance in the future, and we can be very curious to see what will happen with the cryptocurrency, but of course also with the network. Will it become even more decentralized? Will even more people start a node? The whole thing remains extremely exciting. With that in mind, I hope you were able to take something away from the video again, that you once again got the latest news about this hot topic, Casper and Binance, and that you were able to learn a bit more here about Casper, or in this case, the vRocks. I'll be going into more detail on that soon, but to be honest, I still need to make some graphics myself to make it easier to understand because it really is quite technical. With that in mind, I want to say a big thank you to everyone who watches my videos, who always comments, likes, and so on. That, of course, helps the channel grow. To everyone who has recently subscribed, thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.